Hello and welcome everyone. Here we are. We're back for another top 10 discussion or top 8 discussion video. This time it's top 12 planeswalkers, my top 12 planeswalkers. I wanted to do top 8, but there was just way too many planeswalkers I want to talk about. And so I decided to stick with 12. Um, so we're going to get this started here. Alright, so first up is number 12, VIVIAN REID. She's one of the newest planeswalkers that has come out and been printed the most times in recent years. She's only been out since two core sets. So going on the third core set this year. Seems to be the new green planeswalker that we're gonna see for a while, which means we probably won't be seeing too much Nissa, which is all right. I mean, it's nice to change things up. I think Magic gets a little stale with having too many of the same planeswalker in too many different sets. Although she has been printed a lot, but to be fair, two of those times was a planeswalker card. Um, but yeah, most of her cards have all been pretty good. I'm excited for her new one that just came out in Ikora. It looks like it's going to be pretty good too, or could be at least in standard. So she's been her home plane is Scala, and she's pretty unique as far as planeswalkers go. She goes around hunting large creatures and basically taking them and making them part of her bow. Of course, and I think it was War of the Spark. We got Vivian's arc bow printed. Um, which is her signature weapon that we see in pretty much all of her cards. And that's also with her spiritual looking green aura creatures. They are what she shoots from her bow, or she can call forth with her bow, um, which is I think is really cool. I also like her design, the way she looks. Um, I especially in this card's art that we have on the screen, the green emeralds on her gauntlets, her chest, and her headpiece are really nice. Um, I expect that we'll see Vivian a few more times in the next year. Um, I don't know who else we would see as the Green Planeswalker right now. Maybe a return to Garruk, but Garrick's most recent card was printed green black. So, but anyway, of course, right now she is in Ikora, which made sense. That's kind of um, she's kind of a monster hunter type character. So seeing her in the plane with the quote unquote largest monsters around is pretty sweet and pretty expected. Um, Now, I have not read the book yet, but I plan to, and I look forward to it. So hopefully, I'll have more to talk about her in another video. But mostly, I really like her aesthetic, her summoning the beast, because she seems kind of like a hunter that she doesn't hunt for the fun of it. She hunts to kind of give herself an arsenal, a team, so to speak. Um, and as far as I know, we've never been to Scala, so it'll be interesting to see what that plane would be like and about. Again, I'm not completely up on her origins, but she seems awesome. Her design is awesome, um, and honestly, all of her cards except for Planeswalker cards have been really awesome, and I've really liked them. So, and next up is number 11, which is Fraley's Linoir Fury. Give me 1 second. All right, sorry about that weird pause. So, number 11 is Fraley's Linoir's Fury. Now, she has been printed one time, and that was in a Planeswalker deck, I believe. She is, or was one of my favorite Planeswalkers in Cube and stuff like that to play. She's really cool. She makes Linoir elves and stuff. She can destroy artifacts and enchantments, which, of course, is pretty common for a portion of green Planeswalkers. I don't think Nissa's had a Planeswalker card that destroys artifacts or enchantments, but most other green planeswalkers, I guess maybe not most other, I guess maybe just her and Vivian, because I don't think Garruk is either. Garruk usually has the ability to kill creatures with his black cards, but I don't think he's ever done destroy artifacts or enchantments. So, but anyway, so she was born on Dominaria in a one of the forests there. And from my understanding of the story, she actually sacrifices herself during the time spiral block in that story to save part of Dominaria, I believe from the Phyrexians, which is really cool. It is kind of sad because it means we likely will never get a reprint of her in a proper set, but it would be cool. It'd be cool to see her get a printing, say, say the next time we deal with the Phyrexians, it'd be cool to see maybe if we get a flashback printing of her, like so we get a printing of her, but it's from like the previous story talking about her again. That'd be kind of cool. Again, I doubt it. Of course, there's always commander sets. There's always um, stuff like that we could see her printed in, but doubtful that we'd see her printed in a future set just because of the fact that her character's already been killed off. But anyway, she just is a really cool design to me. She seems like more of a um, fighting type character as opposed to like most elves we see, especially compared to like Nissa. Nissa's very much into harmony and peace, and yet she seems very aggressive, very ready to fight. Not that Nissa doesn't fight. Obviously, she stands up and fights against the Eldrazi and NICOL BOLAS. But just that Fraley seems more the type to jump into the combat of things. And I mean, she's got this awesome eye patch. She's got this aura around her. I don't know. To me, she just seems more like the go out and stop things before they happen type. Now, again, I'm not completely caught up on her story either, but I just really liked her design. I like the fact that she was one of the Planeswalkers printed in a commander set, so she's, kind of more mysterious in that way. And before I got any kind of connection with the lore of Magic, I really liked her. She looked cool. And of course, I would love to see her printed again. I would love to see more of this character. She's really cool. I like her design. It's badass that she sacrificed herself to save Dominaria. I think that's really cool. I love those hero stories, and I love characters sacrificing themselves for the greater good. And I think I think while that's a necessary thing, I think it would still be cool to see her, even though you could argue that would kind of cheapen her sacrifice, seeing her more. But that's why I kind of said I would like to see her in like a flashback type card. Also, she was a Planeswalker, I believe, before the Mending, which the Mending essentially is an event that happened in Magic history that basically reduced the power of Planeswalkers, that took them from these all-powerful, almighty gods, basically, to being these. They're still incredibly powerful, but they're not godlike. I mean, that was the whole point of War of the Spark, was NICOL BOLAS was trying to re-achieve that power through sacrificing other Planeswalkers. Of course, he failed, thankfully, but yeah, so I think that's cool. And I mean, I don't know how many other pre-mending Planeswalkers there are. I mean, there's Liliana, NICOL BOLAS, Ugin, and her. I guess Teferi, technically. I'm not sure if Teferi was actually a Planeswalker before the mending. Again, don't know much about his story, but anyway, I really like her. I think she's really cool. Of course, she's another green Planeswalker. That's kind of I really like a few of the different green Planeswalkers. I guess she'd be another cool one that would be kind of cool to see come back in the core set as the core set green Planeswalker. Just because she's very cool, she's very unique, and we haven't had her printed in a core set before. And she wouldn't be the first Planeswalker to start from a commander set and then get printed into the current sets. I mean, look at NAHIRI. NAHIRI the Lithomancer was her Planeswalker version printed first, and then we had NAHIRI the Harbinger printed in Shadows over Innistrad or Eldritch Moon, whichever one it was. So, anyway, that's number 11. Now, on to number 10 is Elspeth Tyrell. She is by far one of the most badass Planeswalkers, in my opinion. She's been printed 5 different times. Her first appearance was in Shard of Alara. And it is still currently unknown what her home plane is. So there's a lot of things I really like about her, starting with the fact that she's kind of the messianic Planeswalker in some ways, since she's died and came back to life. She, of course, Heliod, of course, kills her in Journey to Nyx. And then during Theros Beyond Death, of course, that is the story of Elspeth returning and getting her revenge, so to speak, on Heliod. Um, and like we see here, she's got the Shadow Spirit, which I think is awesome. Another thing that I think is really cool about her, which is kind of unfortunate for her character, is how tied in she is with the Phyrexians. Of course, as we saw in quite a few cards in Theros Beyond Death, Elspeth is very closely tied with the Phyrexians. Phyrexians are, I believe, the reason why her home plane was destroyed and why she left her home plane in the first place, and then arrived in Alara on the Shard of Bant. Other than that, I mean, she's a super awesome, like, she's a badass fighter. She's a really cool, she's a knight. And I think that it would have been cool to see her go to Eldraine and take on the trials in Eldraine. I think that would have been awesome. Because in Eldraine, of course, the whole point of that story is how difficult these trials are. The questing beast gives you basically an extra get out of jail free extra life, just to get through them. And of course, I think it'd be cool to see Elspeth go through that. Maybe not in cards, but in a book or something. That'd be awesome. I mean, to be fair, it'd been cool to see her just go through any trials like that, just show how powerful and awesome of a knight she is. And of course, her connection with other planeswalkers. She of course has a connection with Ajani. Ajani Goldmane, of course, is kind of her BFF. After she dies, he takes her cape and wears it as part of his uniform. And of course, she has some connection with Ashiok, given Ashiok deciding to torture her while in the underworld on Theros. I guess I don't know if it's really, you'd call it torture, but mess with her. But yeah, and I really like the fact that we didn't see her for so long. She was gone from the Magic story, but there was always that hint, that maybe she could come back, maybe we could see her return. And of course, I mean, Greek mythology, Hercules, or at least kind of based off the Disney story, at least Hercules, of course, going to the underworld and bringing back Meg. Kind of similar, with that mythology going around with everything involving the Greek gods and everything. It made sense that she'd eventually come out from the underworld and return back to the normal world. Alright, that is number 10. And now on to number 9, which is NAHIRI the Lithomancer. NAHIRI is awesome. Her home plane is Zendikar. She has 3 different printings. She has Lithomancer, Harbinger, and then the newest one in Worth the Spark, which I don't even remember what that card does, so I'm going to go out on a limb and assume it wasn't very good. So, of course, Nahiri's story is she fought alongside Ugin and all of them to try and stop the Eldrazi. However, that temporarily stopped them when they returned. She reached out and ends up getting trapped in the Hell Vault by Sorin. So then when she gets free finally, she decides that she's going to call Emrakul to Innistrad to destroy Innistrad. And of course, her and Sorin are not friends. They do not get along very well. Which I think is funny considering as they even start their own brawl in the middle of War of the Spark. They get their own little fight going on, which I think is hilarious. Their priorities were clearly not in the right place. But that happens, right? Your sworn enemies there, you're gonna fight. I really like the fact that she did start as a Planeswalker card, and she did get printed into our proper story. I mean, she was obviously a part of the story, but for her to actually get printed and physically be in the current ongoing story, I think it's really cool. I think it is kind of cool too that she's kind of the villainess, so to speak, of Shadows over Innistrad, and all that set, given the fact that she calls forth Emrakul. Which, I mean, I don't blame her. Like, I mean, it's horrible that she did that, given she knows what the Eldrazi did to Zendikar and everything. But I get it. Like you're angry and you want revenge on Soren for betraying you, because Soren's not particularly a good guy. Yeah, I think she's got really good points. I don't think she did the right thing. I think it was wrong, but she's got good reasons. I think she just went about her actions the wrong way, um, which of course is pretty easy to say in fiction. A lot of characters do that. They act harshly or irrationally, kind of not caring what the damage is, just kind of hoping for something. So, um, yeah. As far as where she'll be next, I don't know. I think it'd be kind of cool to see her printed again. Um, but again, as a red white planeswalker, I kind of would rather not see her printed as a monocolored planeswalker again. Just because I don't. I mean, I don't really care for most white planeswalkers, to be honest. Elspeth's obviously an exception. There's another exception up on the list again in a little bit, which I'm sure you probably already know who that is. But yeah, Nahiri is really cool. I like her story. I like her character. Um, her design is awesome. I like the fact that she's a red-white planeswalker. I love the fact that she was based off of the Stoneforge Mystic card. I think that's really cool. Her design and everything was, at least. You know, yeah. I really like her art. I really like her card. Her story's interesting, and yeah, I mean, I don't know what else to say about her. On to the next one is number 8, which is NICOL BOLAS. Of course, NICOL BOLAS has been printed 6 times. He's got 4 Planeswalker cards and 2 creature cards. He's, of course, got his Flip Planeswalker card, which is one of his creature cards. And then he also has his original creature card, which there's not many, I mean, there's obviously the core 5 Origin Planeswalkers that all have flip cards. But other than that, there's not many Planeswalkers that have a creature card, so it's pretty cool to see him having a creature card. His home plane is Dominaria. And he, of course, is the twin brother of Ugin. Now, I believe, if I remember the story correctly, they're part. They were this, or NICOL BOLAS is part of the initial Elder Dragon group, which consists of himself and 5 other dragons, technically, because Ugin is the 6th of the group, being Bolas' twin, of course. His home plane is Dominaria, which, again, given the fact that the vast majority of the original story started on Dominaria and all happens on Dominaria, a lot of these older planeswalkers being from Dominaria is not too surprising. Now, since pop culture has really adapted comics quite well frequently and recently, most people probably know who Thanos is from Marvel Comics and from the Marvel Cinematic Universe. That's kind of what NICOL BOLAS is. He's this overarching villain that his story spans and trickles in here for quite a few stories and quite a few arcs. I mean, not quite at Battle for Zendikar, not quite during Origins, but through this entire time, his story is building and building, and then we get to Amonkhet, where it really starts. We really get the, yes, I am here, I'm the villain. We really started things when we met Tezzeret during, Kaladesh block. There we go. But of course, he rules over Amonkhet. He's brainwashed everyone and is resurrecting the 2 or 3 old gods: the Scarab God, Lotus God, and Scorpion God, I think. And of course, he ends up turning 4 of the other gods into Eternals. Excuse me, sorry about that. Alongside that, of course, he eventually figures out a way to trap all the planeswalkers on Ravnica, and intends to use their spark to make himself a god, which, I mean, he gets pretty close to doing, but thanks to some intervention from Liliana and the rest of the Gatewatch, he is able to be stopped. And of course, they make it look like he's killed so that others won't get any ideas of A try to defeat him themselves to awaken him from his prison realm, or just to free him from the prison realm in general. So, and I believe the story is that he's imprisoned in his own gem up there, and that's what his prison realm is. Now, this means to me that he will eventually make a return, but for the foreseeable future, NICOL BOLAS is gone. I do like that. I do like that Magic had a really big villain that everyone kind of knew was the villain and everyone could get behind, and everyone had to come together in order to defeat him. I do think War of the Spark could have been written a little bit better, but as far as what we get from the cards and the story spotlights in the cards, I think the story is pretty clearly drawn out for us, and you could probably even fictionalize your own story version in your head that maybe is a little bit better and has a little bit more substance than the actual story. Of course, Bolas is one of those characters that he preys on the weakness of everyone else and uses them to his advantage. He's strong enough that he can not only just basically brainwash an entire plane, but he was able to take down Jace mentally, use Chandra's, Gideon's, Nissa and Liliana's weaknesses as well. Of course, those are all pictured in the defeat cycle of each Planeswalker, which is a nice little cycle. Yeah, he's really awesome, really powerful. And I like the fact that like almost all of his Planeswalker cards have been expensive cards, like because when you have a really high costed card or Planeswalker rather, you can have them do a lot. You can have them be really, really strong. And I like the fact that most of Bolas's cards take advantage of that. They do really powerful things. Now, admittedly, NICOL BOLAS hasn't always been the best card, and Grixis hasn't very often been the best colors, but I still think it's really, really sweet. And just from a story perspective, I really like it. I do. Plus, his design is awesome. He's a really cool looking dragon, and I think that's awesome. But yeah, so on to our number 7. We have Teferi, Hero of Dominaria, Time Raveler, Mage of Zelfar, I believe, is his Planeswalker or his regular card printing. His home plane is Dominaria, which of course we know. He's been printed 5 times, including one Planeswalker card, or one creature card, one Commander deck Planeswalker, one Planeswalker deck Planeswalker, and then Hero of Dominaria and Time Raveler. Of course, Teferi is kind of the scourge of Magic right now, as everyone pretty much hates his Teferi 3-drop Time Raveler card, which is understandable. The card's very much so limits what you can do in Magic. I personally like it. I just wish it wasn't so expensive on Magic Online. But yeah, besides that, I really like Teferi. I think he's a really cool Planeswalker. He's very powerful, very unique in a lot of different ways. Is absolutely the kind of creature or Planeswalker that his 5-drop version is very much so the kind of Planeswalker that I really like. He's a 5-drop Planeswalker, comes into play. He can immediately affect the board, but he can also just start drawing you cards. And that's what I like. Like, that's one thing I do like about Narset is the new Narset is she can immediately impact the game. She cannot, but she can as well if you want to. And that's it. Same thing with like Bolas's 5-drop is he had the same ability. But of course, the thing that's kind of cheap about all the Teferis is, or at least the most recent 2, they can come into play and immediately have an effect, but both of them are effectively 3 mana because you get to untap 2 lands with the big one, which can be big, especially in like Modern, where you can untap 2 lands and have Mana Leak up or have Negate up. Same thing in Standard. There's Negate, Disable, Stroke, and stuff like that, but they're not quite as well. He's not in Standard anymore anyway, but Pioneer and Historic. And of course, I mean, he just really had a Planeswalker when he hits the board. That's the first telltale sign the game is on its way out. But I like Teferi's design. I like he just has that like aura to him that he is when he shows up. That's the end. He's like if anyone watches anime, he's like one of those typical like anime protagonists that you're fighting all the side characters and you're winning and you're decimating them, and then all of a sudden the main character shows up and you know the tide of the battle is over. Or it doesn't have to necessarily be the main character, but I mean, just like, for example, like with Naruto, the anime Naruto and Shippuden, um, you know, Naruto shows up during the Pain arc, and Pain's been destroying the entire village. Naruto heroically shows up, saves Tsunade's life, and then fights against Pain. Like, the moment that he shows up, you know the fight's over. You know he's going to beat Pain, and that's the way it's set up. That's the way it feels. And to me, that very much so is captured in the Hero of Dominaria. Is it very much so feels like once it shows up, the game is almost over or on its way to be over. And I think that was the point behind the card, right? Like, he's not so powerful that you can't beat him, but he definitely has that vibe to him, that feeling that, yeah, okay, he's here, game's over. He's the hero we needed. That kind of feeling. And I like that about him. Again, I also like his design. I really like his robe, his tunic like thing. Um, Super sweet. I really like the design. It looks really cool. Looks really like sagey and wizardy. It's like it's really cool. Also, he has a special place in my heart, nostalgia wise, because my very first no, I wouldn't call it an actual competitive EDH deck, but my most competitive and like I play this when I want to win EDH games. EDH deck was a mono blue Teferi EDH off the original creature, and it had a bunch of friends that helped me build it. They gave me suggestions, helped me trade for cards, stuff like that, and it was really cool. It was really fun. I mean, now looking back at that deck, that's one of the things I really regret getting rid of is that deck, because it had all snow-covered basics. Before snow-covered basics were so easily available now. Um, yeah, it was one of those. It was an awesome deck. It was so much fun, and it was very powerful. It was really cool, and definitely miss it. But so Teferi has a lot of different things behind him. What makes me really really like him as a card and as a character in the story. Um, you know, Again, I look forward to seeing what we're gonna get with him, because I have zero doubts in my mind that he's going to be a big part of the story going forward, especially given the fact that more and more we've been getting these little tidbits and little things of the Phyrexians, and I think that eventually we're going to get back to Phyrexia, and eventually I think could be in the next 2 years. Um, and when we do, I think Teferi is going to play a pretty big role in that, and I think we'll see more with him. Plus, core set 20, this next core set for I guess core set 21 or whatever it's going to be called. It's supposed to be a very Teferi centric set, which I'm looking very forward to. I hope we don't get any more 3-drop Teferi cards printed, but I would love to see another like big Teferi Planeswalker printed, like a 5 or 6 drop that's a finisher Teferi. And of course, we know that every core set from this point on is supposed to be thematic to a Planeswalker. Last set was Chandra. This one's going to be Teferi. And I think that is an awesome theme to go with, because I think it brings in collectors, it brings in casual players, and it brings in the players that have been playing, and makes it more appealing having a theme like that. Um, I like it. And Teferi, of course, just really awesome Planeswalker. On to number 6, Jace Beleren, everyone's favorite Planeswalker. Just kidding. Most people hate Jace, which I don't understand fully why he gets so much hate. I understand that he's been printed 11 times, and that's one of the highest printings out of all the Planeswalkers in Magic. Um, but still. And of course, his home plane is Vryn, which is another plane I believe we've never officially been to. For a story, that is. Of course, we learned about Vryn during Origins. That's where he was trained initially. Of course, now he makes his home on Ravnica, or well, I don't know about now, but before War of the Spark, his home had been on Ravnica. He was the Guild Pact, so he was there trying to keep peace amongst the guilds. He obviously did not do a very good job, given the fact that we had all the guilds kind of betraying each other. And for a while there, after War of the Spark, him and Vraska were together. which is kind of a weird couple, but at the same time, I kind of get it. They were enemies for so long. Vraska tried to kill him. Then, of course, everything happened on Ixalan. They had to work together while he had amnesia. And then when he got his memory back, he remembered everything that happened, and he kept those feelings, and he wanted to keep things together and make things work with each other. And I like that. I think it was really cool of him to be like that. And of course, I get it. You spend all this time together with someone, and you just grow feelings for him. It happens. It's understandable. It's realistic. Um, of course, Jace had a lot of issues after after everything with Bolas. Bolas really messed him up. One of the worst, in my opinion, because he just destroyed his mind. He was completely had amnesia, didn't know what was going on, couldn't get off of Ixalan. Yeah, and his story, of course, he has this like antagonistic relationship with Chandra, where Chandra, they had this fight a long time ago, where back around the original Zendikar time, when Chandra is like got some map and he's trying to get it from her, or he's got some map and she's trying to get it from him. I think that's kind of interesting. He's also, of course, got a relationship with Liliana. He, of course, wants to hold out hope that there's good in her and tries to believe there's good in her. And I mean, Liliana does what Liliana does best, and he kind of gets played by her. And that's why I like the fact that he gets with Vraska, because Vraska she's not a good person. She's she's a Gorgon assassin for the love of God. She's not good, but I think for Jace she's much better. I think she really helped Jace figure out who he is, beyond just a member of the Gatewatch, beyond just a mind mage. I think she really helped him learn a lot about himself, and I think that's really shown in the fact that they end up getting together, but just also in I think his Wielder of Mysteries card. I think that shows a little bit more that he's kind of gained some more knowledge, because he's seems more resourceful in the card. Now, of course, that's probably just me reading a lot more into it than there is, but still, it just seems more resourceful. He's come to the point now where rather than having an ability that sets you up to win the game, he's got an ability that wins the game for you. It's an alternate win condition. I like that a lot. And while I don't think it's more powerful than the Mind Sculptor by any means, I think story wise, the card is more powerful, and shows more growth to the character. Yeah, I really like Jace. I know a lot of people don't like him, and don't get me wrong, I get these like over. He's like Magic's poster boy, so I get he's a little saturated, but it's like people don't hate on Pikachu as much as people hate on Jace. Um, and I feel kind of bad for Jace. He gets played. He's very much so kind of feels like he's getting used by Liliana, which I mean to me he is. I very much from where I'm standing he is. But I mean who wouldn't mind that? But yeah, it'll be interesting to see what happens with Jace moving forward. Again, I do hope we get a break from him and we don't see him for a few sets. A few more sets still. Just because we have gotten so much Jace. But yeah, alright, on to number 5. We have Gideon Jura. Now, Gideon, of course, is, in my opinion, one of the least interesting characters, just because he's the Hercules type. He's very straightforward. You know what you're getting with him. I do like his origin that he was very prideful. Of course, his original name is Kithian Iora. And I guess the way he got his name Gideon is, I don't remember what plane it was. I think it was on Alara, maybe? I don't remember. But anyway, they somehow screwed up his name, Kithian, and started calling him Gideon. And so he just stuck with it, which I think is really cool because he kind of reinvented himself after everything. And of course, his origin was that as Kithian, he was very prideful, very arrogant. And I believe it was Heliod. Because of his actions, it led to Heliod killing his friends, and that's pictured in the card Tragic Arrogance. And it kind of shows his growth. from there to being his next cards. And of course, I still remember seeing Gideon in the first place. He was printed when he was printed in Zendikar, and thinking, God, this is awesome. Like that's, and also, what card was it? The one life card. You win the game if you have one life or something. Whatever card that was in Eldrazi. Also, it was cool seeing him, going kind of toe to toe with Emrakul, or not toe to toe, but fighting Emrakul. It was cool. What to me seemed like going toe to toe with Emrakul there, but yeah, and of course his home plane is obviously it's Theros. That's where he was laid to rest. He of course has been printed 8 times. I believe we have one Planeswalker deck card, one flip Planeswalker card, and then the rest are his other printings. I believe I think so. Might have 2 Planeswalker deck cards, and of course Gideon is, in my opinion, one of the rarer Planeswalkers because he's never seemed to even dip into another color. We've had a few others that never have, but he kind of isn't of that main group. He's not that core main group. Although to be fair, I guess Garrick and Johnny have both dipped into other colors, and they're from the original Planeswalker group of cards. So I guess I don't know what I'm talking about. But anyway, as far as, of course, Gideon's death, he sacrifices himself, giving his pseudo-invulnerability to Liliana, allowing her to survive through the curse that NICOL BOLAS has over her, and he ends up dying of it instead. He's then laid to rest on Theros. As far as whether he'll make a return or not in the future, I would like for him to, but I doubt it. Like with Elspeth, there's a pretty clear-cut way they could bring her back. She died on Theros, which meant that she went to the underworld. Gideon died on Ravnica, and they just took his whatever was left of him or whatever to Theros. So I'm not saying he couldn't come back. I'm not saying it's not possible. I mean, come on, look at comics in general. Characters that seem like they're dead and could never come back make miraculous reappearances. So it could happen. But anyway, of course, he's, like I said, kind of the Hercules character. He's the big macho, big buff warrior type character. And yeah, I like him. I think he's awesome. Yes, he is kind of plain. I'll admit that. But I think his story is, to me, more impactful than Jace. It's more meaningful than Jace's. And that's why I put him at number 5. Of course, he is my favorite white planeswalker. And honestly, if he were to splash into another color, I would hope it would be green, like a Johnny. I would think that would be where his best would be. Or red. I could see red too, I guess. I always wanted a Boros Gideon. That'd be super awesome. But yeah, one of those two. Just because I think a Boros Gideon would be A, cool, but B, he could have some awesome abilities that would make him even more powerful. That could also still stick with just his original theme, So, alrighty, moving on to our next one at number 4. We have TAMIYO, the Moon Sage, or TAMIYO, Collector of Tales. Of course, she was one of the War of the Spark Planeswalkers, which got the awesome Japanese alternate art cards, which are awesome. She, of course, is from Kamigawa, which is something that makes me hope we go back to Kamigawa someday. I know a lot of people complain about Kamigawa. I wasn't playing back then, so I don't actually know, but I just love the Japanese theme, and I would love for us to go back to it. And if everyone really feels like Magic Wizards did it wrong the first time, then I would love for them to take a chance to redo it correctly. She's been printed 3 different times now. She has 2 cards from her printed on Innistrad and now Wandering War of the Spark. And her role in the story is essentially gathering the story and observing, which is something that I think is unique. Yes, it's kind of boring. Yes, it's kind of bland. Yes, it's kind of uninteresting. But I do like that aesthetically because it is kind of cool. Someone's gathering the information of these tales of the history of the world and kind of collecting them into stories. And I do think that's cool. And I think it's cool that she views it as her, or from my understanding, let me rephrase that. From my understanding, she views it as her kind of duty to gather this all together and keep it so that other people can know of their history of the world and the stories. That's something I like because she's not like every other planeswalker where they have their own personal goals. Like every planeswalker has their own personal motive, even if it is a good motivation or a bad motivation. I mean, look at Jace. Jace is doing all this stuff, and a lot of it does come off as selfless, but at the same time, there's a lot of self-fulfillment going on in his actions. You know, he's trying to stop BOLAS out of his own uh, desires. You know, yes, it is for a greater good, but there's also selfish motivations. Then you have characters like Liliana that literally everything they do is selfish. It is for their own benefit. So TAMIYO is a character that's she's just gathering stories. She's collecting history, collecting tales, and I think that's cool. Also, I really like her aesthetic. Again, like I said, the Japanese feel to her, the kimono, the like in this image, for example, I really like the geisha girl type look that she carries. Well, I mean, it's in all of her arts, but still, just talking about this one specifically because she's there. Yeah, and there's not much to say about her. I'd love to see more of her. I love if we go back to Kamigawa. I am sure she'll reappear there, but yeah, she's just really cool. I really like her design. Yeah. All right. So on to number 3, we have Liliana Vess, and of course her own plane is Dominaria. Liliana has been printed 10 times, which is almost up there with Jace. And of course, she herself has one Planeswalker card or one creature card, and the rest Planeswalker cards. She was also part of that Origins block or Origins set flip cards. Liliana's story, she basically dabbles in the dark arts because her brother dies. Of course, her brother is Josu Vess, who we do get to see in the Dominaria set. Anyway, she dabbles in the dark arts because of that, and then eventually she gets involved wanting more power and making contracts with her 4 demons, Belzenlock, Gristlebrand, the weird serpent one from Zendikar or from Origins. Was it 5 demons? Yeah, it was 5 demons because there's Razaketh on. Was it 5? No, it was 4. It was 4. Yeah, because it's the serpent one from Origins, Razaketh, Gristlebrand, and Belzenlock. So 4. Yeah, I don't know why I was thinking there was one from Zendikar. But yeah, so she makes a deal with those demons for power. She ends up taking the Chain Veil, which is where she meets Garruk for the first time. She starts this whole conflict with Garruk because she kills one of Garruk's beasts that was attacking her. It's kind of debatable how you view it, whether it was her self-defense or her animosity towards it. Just stuff in general that killed the beast. For me personally, it comes off more as self-defense. She's just protecting herself. But understandable still why Garruk's angry about it. Anyway, of course, Garruk and her have a very big connection, hunting her across the multiverse. Of course, Garruk also gets cursed by her. We have, of course, the Veil cursed, or Garruk cursed the Veil, or whatever his flip Planeswalker card from Innistrad is. Of course, Liliana is one of the most powerful Planeswalkers that we've had printed in a long time. Of course, she was printed Liliana of the Veil, her 3-drop counterpart from the original Innistrad, and then her Return, The Last Hope, are 2 of the most powerful Planeswalker cards that we've ever had printed. Her Commander, Dreadhorde Commander card is also incredibly awesome, printed in War of the Spark. Of course, she is kind of the traitor. She's been branded the traitor by the by Ravnica, the Guilds of Ravnica, and by the Gatewatch. Liliana's story is very tragic. She makes a lot of bad decisions for power, for her selfish gain. And of course, War of the Spark Forsaken, the novel, has a lot of really bad, stupid decisions in it, or in my opinion, stupid decisions. Um, but there are some good things that come from it, and some cool things. For example, Liliana has basically let her life as Liliana die, and she has taken up a new persona, and she calls herself Anna Iora. Of course, she doesn't really consciously know, or supposedly doesn't consciously know where she got the Iora from. But I like it. I think it's cool. Um, and I think it's going to be interesting to see that her next Planeswalker printing, if the character's name is going to be Anna Iora, and then have in the in the Planeswalker box, have Legendary Planeswalker Liliana. I think that'd be really cool, and I'm excited to see that potentially. Of course, she's still out there. If I remember correctly, she's trying to make amends for what she did and kind of try to do right now. She's trying to make Gideon's sacrifice mean more. And I think that's important. I think that's something that's cool and something we can go with the character now in a new direction. Rather than being the vengeful, evil character and manipulative, now we're going to see her try to make amends for that. Now, I assume she's still going to make mistakes. She's still going to fall back into her old ways at times. But I would love to see her new, um, her new future moving forward be more redemptive in an attempt. And of course, Liliana is the typical bad girl, the girl that's clearly not good for you, but you're going to choose anyway because she's very beautiful, she's very attractive, um, and she's powerful, and she's all those things that generally people are interested in. Um, so I really like Leona's design, of course. Um, she's been one of my favorite cards to play in Constructed, and yeah, I think all around she's basically every topic she checks boxes for me. She's really cool story wise. She's really cool design wise. She's really cool playing wise. Um, yeah, I really like Liliana. She's cool. So on to number 2, which these top 3 slots were really hard for me to come up with, but number 2 is Chandra Nalaar. Um, Chandra's one of the few planeswalkers that we actually get an explicit age printed out for. I'm not sure where it was found, but on the Magic Wiki, I found her age, which I put down because it's unique to me that she specifically had her age. So she is 23 years old. Her home plane is Kaladesh, of course. Um, and she's actually been printed 14 times, which is more. She has 14 unique Planeswalker cards, which is more than any of the other Planeswalkers on this list. Of course, Chandra has kind of a sad history as far as her Planeswalker cards go. Most of them have been pretty terrible. Of course, recently she's had much better printings. Even so far, Torture Defiance, of course, probably her best printing with some conversation one way or the other for other Planeswalker cards being better, such as her Awakened Inferno card. But, and of course, they're all kind of situational and based around what you're playing her as, but I think she's definitely the best. She, of course, is kind of a hothead, does a lot of rash things, and of course, there's a lot of controversy around her because of the things that go on from the Gatewatch story all the way through to War of the Spark Forsaken, which I do have some thoughts on that, and I do have some opinions. And basically, if you've read those stories, the controversy is that Chandra's kind of made out to be this, I guess, pansexual type character, or this, gay character. Not really sure how. To me, she's always kind of come off as just like, she's very young, very impressionable, and she doesn't really know what she wants. And that's kind of what I got out of the Gatewatch story, where she kind of seems to be falling for Nissa and having feelings with Nissa. But then it's written in the Forsaken that apparently she likes big burly men, like big strong men like Gideon, which kind of retcons her whole relationship with Nissa, and writes it off kind of as a passing phase, or it kind of gets, to me, comes off as, kind of be written off as like, oh, it's a passing thing, like she's over it, which I think is, I think it's bad that they treated it that way, but at the end of the day, I think the issue here is character vision. I think that you got to meet in the middle for it here. And clearly, whoever was writing the Forsaken novel had a different vision for where Chandra was going to go from here. And quite frankly, I don't think the issue is what she's interested in. I think the issue is about how you go about showing what she's interested in. Because I think there's nothing wrong with her being straight and liking men like Gideon, who are strong, and they're clearly not the intellectual type like Jace. They're big, strong, tough, knight in shining armor types. I think the issue is the way you deal with it. And I think there's nothing wrong with saying that, okay, well, she didn't know what she wanted, and she doesn't know what she wants. But I think there's a cheapness to saying that was a phase, or that wasn't what you thought it was. And I think it takes a lot away from a character when you say that, no, that was just like a mistake or an accident or a slip of the tongue. Or I think it takes away from a character greatly, because Chandra, she is this hothead. She is very much so the personification of what you expect, kind of like what I would expect a human version of fire to be. She is a hothead. She just burns up at everything. She's easy to go off one or the other, and she's very, very influenced. But at the same time, because of that easily influenced personality, she doesn't really know what she wants. And I think that's important, because her whole story arc is about discovering herself and learning who she really is, and trying to grow and develop. And I think it's important that you don't just say, okay, well, all this decisions she's made up to here were a mistake. Maybe she does realize that she's not really as into Nissa as she thought she was. But I don't think you should just cheapen it by saying, oh, that was a phase or that was a mistake. I think it should be more like she's learning who she really is. She's learning what she really likes. And I think her and Nissa would have been a great couple, but they're fictional characters. It doesn't really matter, I don't think, at the end of the day. And my personal viewpoints are very different than what many others would be on the topic. But I think at the end of the day, as far as writing goes, it's bad writing to just retcon a character because it's a new writer. There are good and appropriate ways to make an adjustment to a character's backstory and her previous love interests without crumpling up all that paper and throwing it away and saying, nope, that was a mistake, or nope, that wasn't what you really thought it was. As far as Chandra's story goes, I think she's awesome. She's definitely the type of character that, she's explosive, she's fun, she's a little rash, which seems to cause problems for everyone else around her sometimes. Of course, I am really happy that she kind of got her revenge defeating Dovin at the end of the day. Of course, Dovin being involved with everything going on with her mom and with her backstory, and I think it was cool that she got her revenge at the end of the day against him. And yeah, so basically my thoughts on Chandra are simply just, I think she's awesome. I love her design. I love her personality. I love how she is a hothead. She just acts, and sometimes she's very impulsive. But I think that she kind of got a little bit of a cheap treatment, and yeah, I think that she's a character that I would like to see more of in the distant future. But we've gotten a lot of Chandra recently, so I would like to see us have a little bit more time away from her before we get her again. So that being said, she is my number 2 favorite Planeswalker. And yeah, there's not much I don't like about the character, honestly. All right, and number 1 is Nissa Revane. I don't know what that note is supposed to be on there, but okay. Anyway, her home plane is Zendikar. Of course, she gets involved with the Gatewatch because of the Eldrazi attacking her home. Her initial Planeswalker card kind of was weird and kind of just seemed out of place almost, in my opinion. I get that she fit in the story, and that's like where she was on Zendikar and everything, but she just seemed like she didn't fit in very well. Of course, as the story's gone, she has fit in better and gotten more involved with the story. She has had 9 different printings, I believe there are 2 Planeswalker deck cards for her. I don't remember exactly, but yeah. Of course, Nissa. I made the joke in my uh, best or favorite women video that I apparently have a thing for elves, and Nissa is definitely a case in point for that. Um, I really like her design. I really think she's awesome. And I like her whole nature aesthetic. I think she's um, it's really cool that she has that. I mean, obviously she's a green planeswalker, but I think that her kind of caring more for nature and using it as her power source and weapon is awesome. Like I don't remember. It's the Selesnya statue when she shows up for in the War of the Spark. She shows up and awakens the Selesnya statue, and it's awesome. Like that's super cool. She uses her powers um, in a lot of different ways, a lot of unique ways. And one thing about her story is like I remember vaguely, and again, this I might be remembering this a little wrong, but I remember during Kaladesh when she's on Kaladesh, the plane is very mechanical and all machinery like stuff. So she's having a very hard time connecting with the plane, and it was very difficult for her. And I think that was one thing I really liked about her and Chandra's connection was the opposites. She's very zen, very spiritual kind of feeling, kind of very very sage like. And Chandra was very rash, very hot tempered, very quick to act. Really, all the opposites of Nissa, and I think that was something that was really interesting because they both could help each other kind of come out of their shells and kind of focus on a different areas and be a little bit more like the other. Um, and that's it. Nissa, of course, makes a choice after everything that happened with BOLAS when they go to Dominaria. She basically decides to quit the Gatewatch, breaking her oath and leaving back for Zendikar because she knows Liliana's playing everyone, she's manipulating everyone, and she doesn't want any part of it. Which I mean, it's true. Liliana was looking out for herself. She was using the Gatewatch to destroy her demons. Um, that's just it. Like Nissa really looks out for her friends. There was a point where Chandra kind of was being manipulated by Liliana, and back to the influential or easily influenced part I said with Chandra. Liliana seemed like she was really manipulating or using Chandra's confused feelings for Liliana to manipulate her into doing things that could get her in trouble or get her hurt, and that really angered Nissa. Nissa didn't like that very much. So, and that's it. So Nissa really looks out for her friends, and of course looks out for nature. And I really think that Nissa is very unique in the way she is. Um, she definitely, to me, stands out more of the green planeswalkers than most. Um, I mean, all of the green planeswalkers kind of have their own thing. But to me, she kind of feels the most unique. Fraley's and her feel a lot alike, but she feels a lot more unique than the other green planeswalkers of note that we know a decent amount about. Um, I do like the fact that she, has joined the Gatewatch, now has left it, and we're going back to Zendikar, so we'll see her again there, I'm assuming, which means God knows what, I don't know, but I look forward to it. I really, I like her. I think she's awesome, and her art is always beautiful. She's a very good-looking planeswalker. I love her glowing green eyes. Again, I got apparently a weird thing for elf girls. Don't know what that's about. But yeah, you know, and to me, she's definitely one of those planeswalkers that she seems to have a lot of experience. I don't know how old she actually is in the story, but she definitely comes off when I read her stuff about her, read her story stuff. She comes off to me as very much so not old, but definitely if Chandra's 23, she comes off to me as her 35, 36, 37, around that age. She's lived, she's got her life experience. She's not old, and she still can keep up with everyone else, keeps doing stuff, but she's got a lot of life experience. She's learned a lot. She's seen the bad and good in people. So, anyway, that is my top 10 or top 12 favorite Planeswalkers list. I didn't really mean to have that whole tirade with Chandra, but I thought about it and was, figured I'd voice my opinion on that. As far as, again, I'm talking about from a writing aspect. I'm not talking about from a political, religious, or any other aspect. From a writing aspect, I don't like it because it cheapens a character's arc and all the work that's put into a character. Yeah. So let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. Let me know what your guys' favorite Planeswalkers are. Do you have a favorite? Are you like me and you have a really hard time deciding? Like, again, I was going to cut this to a top 8, but I really want to talk about all 12 that are on here. And I want to do honorable mentions, but I feel like that was kind of a lazy way of making it a top 12 list, is just adding 4 honorable mentions and then having top 8. So, yeah. I like I said, I really like all these characters on here. I really like their stories. I really like their designs. Let me know what you guys like about your favorite Planeswalker. Let me know what you guys like and dislike about these Planeswalkers. Are you one of the people that just really doesn't like Jace or Gideon? Are you one of the people that does like them? Yeah, let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. And I hope you guys enjoy this video, and I'll catch you guys next time.